opposition here in full.
They're here.
Yes. Opposition is here.
Okay, I guess that means that the team I'm looking for that hasn't yet responded is Proposition, but I do see 3 speakers from Proposition. So in the meantime, may
Proposition
both
is here.
teams put their... Okay, amazing. In the meantime, as we do judge introductions, may both teams put their speaking orders in the chat space. As they do that, my name is Dylan. I will be your chair for the round. Joining me are a couple of amazing panelists. I'll allow my panelists to introduce themselves in however order they pick. So panelists, whenever you're ready.
I'm Sanjeev Kumar. I will be a panelist. All the best for this round.
Adrian, I'll be a panelist. Oh, sorry, Manu, go ahead.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Emmanuel. Congratulations on making it thus far. I'll be a panelist for this round, and good luck to everybody.
Hi, everyone. Name's Adrian. All the best to both teams. Congratulations for making it to semis. I'll be one of your panelists. All the best.
My name is Jonathan. I will be one of your panelists. I wish you all the best in this round. Congratulations.
All right, I think that brings us to a conclusion of all of the panelists. Proposition team, whenever you are ready to introduce yourselves, followed by opposition. Let's do this quickly and get the round started.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Ssenyonga Shaban from Team Accra. I thank everyone that has contributed to this. I wish like a good round to everyone here.
Okay, perhaps the rest of Proposition is currently shy of introducing themselves, so we can move on to Opposition if Proposition is not ready to comply with introducing themselves.
My name is Musana Shaheerah. I'm from Proposition. I'll be doing that speech. Thank you.
Okay, the last Proposition speaker to introduce him or herself, then we move on to Opposition. Okay, to save time, let's just, okay.
Okay, I think we'll just move on. This is Ryan, team opposition, first speaker. Hope to have a good round. Good luck, everyone.
Sorry, my network is bad. This is Glen, second speaker from opposition.
This is Titus, third speaker from opposition.
Okay, amazing. Thank you for those introductions. Standard WSDC rules apply, 8 minutes with 15 seconds of grace time. After that period of time, we will not be taking down any notes and we will tell you that your speech is over. POIs are really, really encouraged, and may we have a very, very engaging round. I now call upon the first speaker of proposition to start off the debate. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Chair. To begin with, setting limits of my speech. One, I will only be receiving POIs in the fourth and fifth minute of my speech, so I don't expect POIs before or beyond that time setting. Yeah, and like I don't have a timer. If someone like could do like clap after my first minute and also clap vigorously when my time is done, that will be very good for me. It won't be like some kind of interruption. Well, to begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. Sorry, there is some disturbance in the background. Please, the disturbance. Okay, I begin my speech in 3, 2, 1, go. So, Chair, I think it is necessary for us to make analysis on what a football career looks like, 2, on talent, and then 3, and most importantly, to look at Bitalo himself in this debate. That is to say that a football career is a career that seems to be like very short and very productive within the shortest period of time. That is to say that if you are someone who is like very competitive, you compete from the age of 15, not like exceeding the age of 40. That is to say that's when you are like more productive, competitive, and things related to that. But then you need to be like very curious about this. You need like to realize that in that particular kind of game setting, you most likely have like to collect the money and the financial security that you have like to provide and run the entire life that you're remaining with on earth. That is to say that if you say that you're going like to keep loyal to the home team, then that particular kind of like loyalty in the home team and like a country like Uganda is most likely not going like to buy food or even contribute to your financial security or even like to your hospital bills in that particular kind of regard. What does this mean? That then you need to extend like for better opportunities if you're like to survive like in life and things related to that. One, you need to understand like a football career is like very short and fragile. That is to say that if you get like injured without like securing or even neglecting opportunities that come to life, and then you don't secure like better financial assistance, and then a time comes and you get maybe some kind of injury, you're most likely going to get ruined because you did not like utilize an opportunity that came to you. Always proud like to propose. Realize that Bitalo that we talk about in this kind of debate is a major legend that has like won like trophies for the home team. That is to say that he had like made a contribution to his home team and things related to that, right? But then number 2, and most importantly, the opportunity that he gets like from the Premier League does not like deter him like to come back like to the home team. That is to say that he's most likely going to come back to the home team, just like we have like AFCON ongoing, like the different players have also like been allowed to come back to their home team. What does it mean? That then he still has an opportunity to still like come back to the home team and like contribute to it in things related to football and of a sort, right? But then number 2, and most importantly, the benefit with this is that then you're more likely going to have like better coaches than the Ugandan coaches that we have within Serasco, but then to, and most likely like exposure and like that kind of training that you're going like to come back with better skills, which will contribute to some kind of like contributions that like you make to the home team and things related to that, right? But then number 3, and most importantly, we think that then at the home team, like he has limited growth as a legend, exposure, and financial security. That is to say that then if he does not like utilize the opportunity that he has, and then he remains like at the stance that he is like right now, he is most likely will like remain a legend and his legendary contribution known to his home country, which means that then he's most likely will not have like the financial assistance that is equal to the kinds of skills that he has as an individual. But then number 2, and most importantly, we have to analyze the nature of Premier League and the opportunity that he gets within Serasco. That is to say that the Premier League offers like higher competition like for him as an individual, which will aid him like to become maybe a Ugandan ambassador in football and also like to make the country known in things related to that. This means that then one, he creates like an inspiration to the young generation to also like join football and also like work hard for like those bigger opportunities, because we believe that then he's like going to be like a pivotal like individual within that scope, right? But then number two, and most importantly, we think the global exposure makes Uganda like known in football, which means that then we are most likely going like to attract like bigger companies to come and like support the home football, or even the contribution that the money he gets from there can aid him like to come and promote Uganda football, which I think like is very necessary and very important for Bitalo, but also for like your Ugandan football like federations and things related to that, right? But then personally to him, he's most likely going to like get better pay, training systems and things related to that. Why do you think this happens? One, we think that then the Premier League could offer him, because of his legendary contribution and status, offer him like better pay and things related to that, which will improve like his status. But two, and most importantly, like the training itself like helps him like to copy like those particular kinds of skills. Maybe if he comes to Uganda as a coach or even footballer, which like he can apply in this particular kind of regard. But then you need to realize that the nature of opportunities that we have in the world. You need to understand that then the nature of opportunities that we have in the world, like, are once lifetime opportunities. That is to say, it's not like very easy to get like a Ugandan just like in status quo to be like joining the Premier League as the status stands. But if Bitalo has gotten like this one lifetime opportunity, I think it's more likely going to like not to be going to be like very productive to him if he utilizes it. But if like he rejects the offer or even opts like for loyalty, he's most likely going to lose on to all those benefits that are introduced to you and lose those opportunity. What do you think that then the opportunity would have come like once in life like for him as Bitalo, right?
You're
But
right.
then, yes, I'll take it.
Bitalo is most likely a maverick player. Why is training so important for him?
We think that then training is important for a player like Bitalo in status quo for two major reasons. That is to say that if he goes to the Premier League, then like the intense training that happens from there could contribute to him. We don't think that then if he joins the Premier League, he will stop training, no. But then we think that then the training that happens there could be different from the training that we have like in Uganda and things related to that, right? But then, and most importantly, I think that this particular kind of opportunity is like exposing to him like to different things that happen here. That is to say that Bitalo could be like having a better talent, like than other individuals in Uganda. That's like why he's like a legend and things related to that. But then you need to understand that then if he goes there, he could maybe be helped like to improve his talent beyond what we see like in Uganda and what we praise in Uganda, which we think that then can be like very good of him or even contribute to him as an individual. I will run one argument in this debate: financial security and family responsibility. That is to say that then we think that then footballers themselves like work hard and work a lot, and sometimes they don't get like a pay that is equivalent to their particular kind of hard work. That is to say that he may be in Uganda, but then the pay that he gets and his talent has been spotted by maybe a bigger snatch or even a bigger eye. That is to say, then he will get like this particular kind of bigger pay because of his opportunity and talent, like to earn from it and things related to that. This is to say, he will not be like regretful or even discourage other individuals from working hard or even utilizing his talent, because then it is like inspiration and like contributing to his particular kind of personal life. But then number two, and most importantly, we think it is like everyone's right like to aim for the bigger in life. That is to say that if Bitalo gets an opportunity, then it becomes his right like to utilize it at the end of the day. That is to say, if you deprive him or even like begin condemning him within status quo, it means that then you're depriving his right as one, a footballer, like to attribute or even get like big opportunities in life. But then number two, and most importantly, I think like then the Ugandan status quo itself is not like very supportive to the players themselves. That is to say that the chair, the Ugandan status, we've been seeing like different footballers in Uganda after leaving football, going on to like lacking what to eat and also not having like stable lives at the end of the day. So we think if you deprive him of his like particular kind of right to get bigger opportunities, when at home you're not even giving them like a better opportunity, or even a better so even support after football, or even the pay is very rich at home, then it means that then you're creating some kind of discouragement to the growing talents themselves. But then number two, and most importantly, him as an individual to benefit from his talent, right? But then number two, and most importantly, we think Bitalo is a breadwinner. That is to say, if he's a legend in Uganda, very many people, sorry.
Thank you,
Rest.
Speaker. Your time is up. Yes, your time has elapsed. With that, we invite the first speaker from opposition to start off the opposition debate.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Could you say a full sentence, perhaps read out the motion?
Let me look for the motion. Perfect. This house as Bitalo will take the offer.
Yes, you are applicable.
Okay, cool. Just give me like 30 to 40 seconds to set up everything and I start. In the meantime, shout out to Glen and Titus. They have carried me a lot. But anyway. Yeah. So I'm going to begin the debate in 3, 2, 1. On side opposition, we think your ability to succeed as an African player in the EPL is significantly less. In as far as your financial security is tied to your ability to succeed and to succeed long term, and that is actively impeded on side proposition side, we have never been more proud to oppose. Firstly, a few things to set up. First of all, who actually is Bitalo? We think Bitalo is more like a genius footballer, more like a maverick player, more like a skillful player, a player like Messi, a player like Neymar, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo, and the likes. This is for two reasons. Firstly, the nature of sports systems that exist in Uganda. We say for you to be considered that good that you even have a chance to sign for a Premier League club, you most likely had to be talented from a very, very young age because the systems that exist in Uganda are not good enough to train you to such a very high elite level. What does this look like? You're more likely more skillful and you're more likely more of a street footballer because you probably grew up playing on the streets. But then, secondly, how football is generally perceived, right? To be considered great, usually are considered skillful. That is to say, players who are more skillful, more flamboyant, and more maverick in how they play are the ones considered great. That's why Bitalo has this like status of greatness. The implication of this characterization is twofold. One, his success is going to be directly contingent ball out. It means if I prove that the EPL stops him from bowling out, win. But then thirdly, this argument really frames out the idea on training and better support systems. That is to say, Bitalo is already a great, excellent Maverick player. The only things that they'll probably be teaching him that are different, it's not to his ball skill. It's tactical stuff and all these things. I'm still going to flip that analysis and show you why those things like the tactical adaptability and stuff is going to become like really wrong. But I think the last thing here is just on the nature of the contract signing. So I think there is like a very big risk on taking on an African player, a Ugandan in this particular instance. It means that in the contract, there are most likely clauses that exist that tie the extent to which you're to be paid, the extent to which you're able to get any benefit, contingent on your success, meaning you have to hit the ground running. The chart is simple. We remove their case entirely if we show you that he can't succeed. Now, I just want to engage. Their biggest chat is financial security. 3 responses. 1, if I show that you don't have long-term success and your financial security is tied on long-term success in most instances, they don't have that argument. Secondly, his optics are already solidified now. It means there's a high likelihood that right now he has brand deals and things that actively make him more money. If I'm able to show you that you worsen his optics when he goes to the EPL, then you directly remove financial security. But then thirdly, struggling EPL teams don't actually pay that much. They don't pay millions. Yes, they pay to some extent, but you need to have brand deals to actually hit that level of like, yeah, I've made that big financial security. If I show you, you like lessen his capacity for him to get those brand deals because you worsen the system in which he plays, then we're going to like flip this whole argument and make financial security ours. So just to chat about why structures in the EPL are hard to succeed in for Bitalo. Before I do that, I want to take a few if there's any. Quickly, 3, 2, 1. Cool. Why is it that the structures in the EPL are hard to succeed in? The premise of this argument is simple. We say that from media scrutiny to tactical adaptability, there's a very low likelihood that Bitalo is able to succeed. Firstly, on significant levels of media scrutiny. The first layer here, I think that negative media attention, by the nature of you being a struggling EPL club, is very existent. It looks like how people make memes about these clubs struggling and how people actively shit on these clubs' performances. But then, secondly, it is a very hard transition for Bitalo into EPL, where there is an extreme jump in competition. That is to say, there is a less likelihood for him to hit the ground running because the jump in competition is significantly higher. Why is this uniquely bad for Bitalo? Firstly, Uganda's sports sector is not the best. It means he had to be very good from birth to succeed. What it means then, he barely went through any struggles of scrutiny. He was largely glorified, he was largely glamorized. We say that the significant levels of scrutiny that are most likely going to exist actively impede on his confidence and his ability to perform existentially. But then, secondly, within the EPL fan base itself, and this is very crazy, there are so many instances where even good players like Bukayo Saka, Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, who are black and are actually from England, have been racially abused at the point when they don't perform. This is to say, when they missed penalties in the Euros, what happened? They were cheated on, they were abused, and all these things existed. This is largely exacerbated because the hype that exists from the highlights, like Bitalo had when he got into this team, when he was not making players and putting them on the floor, and all these things, yeah. If that hype is not able to be fulfilled, and my next analysis is going to show you why it can't be fulfilled, it's then going to actively hurt his confidence, and then he has no ability to succeed. So the first layer was on scrutiny and why that's bad for Dalo's confidence. But then secondly, on tactical adaptability, the context here is simple. I think struggling clubs use highly pragmatic tactics. That is to say, they're most likely to do things like mid blocks, low blocks, and rest defenses, where football is less flamboyant, football is less fluid, and football is less dynamic. There are two problems with this. One, they require him to do a lot of off the ball rest defense work. Since he's a Mavericks player, this is not his strong suit. It means it exposes more weaknesses in his game than exposing the good thing about his game, given that I've characterized which kind of player he is to be perceived as like that good. But then secondly, he has very few opportunities to express his tactical genius. When you watch a team like Leeds play Manchester City or something, Leeds actively sits and defends their box. It means Bitalo has less opportunities then to express his tactic, like his football IQ, his football genius, and all these things. Yeah, we say that this is wrong for two reasons. One, it actively makes him continue to lose his confidence because the tactical system does not favor how he wants to play and how he wants to express himself. Since your ability to succeed as a footballer is largely tied on your confidence, as Scott McTominay recently said in one of their press conferences, if he's not confident, he can't succeed. But then secondly, if it really doesn't fit his skill set, he cannot magically be good for that kind of system. It means there is a less likelihood that he's able to succeed within the system. The overall impact is simple. It kills his ability to have long-term success because of the racial abusing, because of his inability to express himself and the fear instance to express himself. He's not able to put himself out there. It means the clauses that exist in his contract that I showed you in calculation that largely tie his success to his performance are then triggered, meaning they are most likely to reduce his salaries. They are most likely to give him less bonuses. But then secondly, it means like how the fan base acts. They are more likely to racially abuse him. They're more likely to say he's trash. If they abuse their own English players who are black, what makes you think they won't abuse a Ugandan? We say this is bad for his image and this is bad for his confidence and success. If he can't succeed, he can't get brand deals. If he can't succeed, he can't even get better deals. However, on our side, we don't expose him to those things and we keep in the optics of being good. If he's in the optics of being good, he's then much more able to express himself, show himself, and get more brand deals because he's able to be much more flamboyant, much more fluid and free in his play. We say his success is tied on his long-term ability to express himself. Never been more proud to oppose. Here.
Thank you, Speaker, for that amazing speech. May we have the second speaker from Proposition? Yeah.
Assuming audibility, I do not have a timer, so please do remind me. All right, so I'll begin
Yes,
my speech on the count of 3, two, and one. So, I think that one of the major things that we need to understand in this debate is one, why a struggling Premier team is still better than a Ugandan football club. And also, we need to look at entirely what Bitalo's best interests are. Notice that we also need to look at the nature of transferring a player in of themselves and the nature of sports in of itself. Notice that the nature of sports is that sports is like most likely, you know, the nature of like entirely salary in sports is that we think that players are most likely paid quite well depending on their skill and talent. This usually means that at a point in time where Bitalo is transferred, he's most likely going to get like more salary and depending on his skills and talent. Also, on to like the nature of the contract in of itself. We think that one, Bitalo has like more like a specific right and things in of themselves to negotiate what he wants the contract to look like. That means that he goes ahead to negotiate things like his salary and that in of itself, which are clearly visible to him, unlike what they assume on their side of the house. Notice that Bitalo is very much able to go ahead and like consent to the amount of salary that he's given and most likely show that he is uncomfortable with it and things in of themselves. And I think that we need to notice is like at a point in time where like at a point in time where a footballer is like much more likely taken in by an English Premier League team, it means that that footballer most likely gets the attention. Like what is so unique about them that has made them to be transferred from a local football club onto an English Premier League team. What does this mean for Vitalo? It means that at a point in time where Vitalo joined the Premier League team, he most likely had the attention from other players. They most likely want to see what is entirely unique about him, and that means that they're most likely going to give him the room to go ahead and like most likely show his skill and that in of itself. It means that the club is also going to go ahead and invest more effort into making him better. Notice the reason why the reason why a maverick a maverick player still goes ahead to need things like training is because why? Yes, we do consider the fact that they need things like implementing their tactics in of themselves. This is a point in time where a player is able to like improve their tactics. It then makes it better. It then makes it easier for them to like go ahead and perform better. What do they tell you on their argument of racism? They tell you that racism stems from things like underperforming during like football matches in of themselves. We think that the likelihood of underperforming during a football match is reduced at a point in time where a footballer is able to gain more skill. That entirely takes out their argument of racism because what Bitalo is able to get better and entirely able to become a better player, and that in of itself it in of themselves means that he's able much able to perform well on field. Sorry, and that means that entirely it takes out the argument and things like scrutiny or like being looked at entirely badly. Not Notice on why a struggling English Premier League team is still better than a Ugandan team. Notice in the best interest of Bitalo. We think that Bitalo as an individual most likely strives for things like career advancement and for things like improving his skill in of themselves. Notice that at a point in time where we have an entire English Premier League team, even if it's struggling, within that one, it most likely has things like better financial stability. That means that they most likely invest in things like better coaches and most likely invest into things like most likely investing into things like better equipment in of themselves. So necessarily means that Bitalo is able to have like better coaches and most likely going to be able to perform better. So that necessarily means his skills entirely are honed. Notice also, there are points in time where Bitalo is able to go in an English Premier League team. It means that he most likely gets more visibility. It means that they are very much notice that an English Premier League team notice that the Premier League in of themselves has a lot of it because it reaches out to a global scale. At a point in time where the entire world is able to what Bitalo that one he's able to like much more likely get more visibility, and then it's telling me that entirely he's able to get like he's entirely able to get more offers in of themselves and more recognition and probably more fans in of themselves. Looking at the impact on the entire Ugandan football community, which is at a point in time where younger football players see Bitalo going ahead to be taken in by an English Premier League team, they then get inspiration to perform much better. Then it certainly means that they then put in more effort, and then it certainly means that we have a good impact being achieved on the Ugandan football community as a whole. Notice that at a point in time where the Ugandan football community is recognized for producing such good players, it means that it then makes it very much easier for other clubs or most likely like for them to get things like investment from other like outside countries in of themselves. So it certainly means that the football community as a whole gets to benefit. Notice in the impact on impact on Bitalo's team. It means that Bitalo's team is also able to get things like recognition in themselves, and it means that they're also able to get things like potential investments in them. And according to tell me they have potential investments, it means that they're able to put in more effort into the younger players that Bitalo is leaving behind. So it telling me that you get to improve that team that Bitalo is leaving behind, at the same time improve on his skills, at the same time benefit the Ugandan community as a whole. Notice here, that entirely means that we generate very much significant benefit for like all major stakeholders. And it's telling me that upon the time where Bitalo gets transferred, we think that it's very much good for the benefit. Also, we think that upon the time where his previous football team gets a certain amount of money for his sale, then it's telling me that this amount of money can be used very much invested in like better training for the younger footballers that Bitalo is leaving behind, and entirely go ahead to benefit them. We'll show you why one, it is beneficial for Vitalo as an individual in of himself, and also two, why it's beneficial for the entire football community and entirely for his football team. I'll take you later. So when they go ahead to say when they go ahead to say that there's going to be things like increased competition, that it's going to be very hard for Vitalo to like compete against in of themselves. We think that this competition in of itself is very good for Vitalo, because one, he gets exposed to better players, and entirely the dynamics of other teams in of themselves. So that means that at a point in time where he gets very much different exposure, it means that he gets to put in more effort and he gets to learn more. So then he's telling me that this competition is entirely good for him, and that means that at the point in time where he gets more competition, it means that entirely his performance gets better. They say that Bitalo won't get more attention, Bitalo won't get attention, and entirely in of themselves. We'll show you that what. At the point in time where a new football player is recruited on that team, it means that he very much gets attention and very much gets like the chance to go ahead and like develop his skill in of themselves. I'll take a PRI.
Does the less fluid tactical setup of Wolves in the Premier League right now help Bitalo express his skills to enable him to succeed and make money, as you claim?
Notice, one, entirely the payment of Bitalo does not depend on the setup of the team in of themselves. We think that Bitalo's payment is entirely based on his skill in of itself. Where we show you the nature of sports, where one, a player is paid entirely based on their skill and talent. At a point in time where Bitalo has more skill and talent, initially means that he gets like more money in of themselves, and that's entirely not dependent on the setup of the team. We think that at a point in time where I'll be able to prove that, it means that it's better. Looking more on the long-term impact. At a point in time where football in of itself is a game where you entirely have an age limit and you entirely have a small period of time to go ahead and generate enough income as you show in fast speed, it means that Bitalo is incentivized to like put in very much effort in the little time that he has. Notice at a point in time where he's on English Premier League, it means that he's able to collect more money than he would have on a Ugandan football team, on a Ugandan football club. Notice the Ugandan football clubs are not even able to compete with things like greater competition in of themselves, unlike what he gets from the English Premier League team. So you think that at a point in time where he's able to have like a much more long-term benefit, it then justifies for Vitalo to go ahead and take in that offer. I beg to rest.
Thank you, Speaker, for that amazing speech. May we call upon the second speaker from the opposition team, Yeah.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Yeah. Okay, give me some time to like just organize my notes and set up my time. Yeah. Yeah, let me set up my timer. Right, I'll start on my next word. I don't think just because. Sorry, could I restart my speech? Something that's disturbing me. Someone was trying to call. Could I restart?
All right, that's fine.
All right, let me reset my timer. Right, I'll start on my next word. I don't think it's viable for you to throw yourself into a pit of fire simply just because you're going to get some extra dollars. We don't think people's utility is determined by how much money they can accrue from their own livelihood. We are very, very proud to side with side opposition. So a bit of engagement first. I'll structure this engagement in two ways before I give an extension as to why the Premier League side is very toxic. I'll first give speaker by speaker engagement, then the engagement to our responses. First, I think the first speaker chats about how this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. Notice this can't be credited as an argument. If it's a once in a lifetime opportunity for me to become a stripper, should I take it? No. Why is this important? It shows a once in a lifetime opportunity only becomes as valuable as you can accrue some level of benefit from it. I think this is important. Why? Because it shifts the prop case into proving why a benefit is so util for Bitalo existent within their arguments. What do they chat about from first within like benefits themselves? A, you get more money, but B, you get more training. Let's engage the training chat. Ryan says you're a maverick. Talent is like garnered from how much capacity you've had to play. So you have played for a long time. You have played like long periods of time. So you're probably very, very talented. They want to buy you, so you likely have a lot of skill. So it's likely that training you get isn't about your skill, but about like tactical training. So what happens within their world? First, he succumbs to tactics that don't align with his incentives, i.e., the capacity to play freely. Why is this valuable for him? A, the joy you get when you can utilize your free will to play as you please. When you can utilize your free will to like do rainbow flicks in a match or to chop players anywhere you want. And it's unlikely within their world that he accrues this benefit simply because he has to align within their tactics. So it's unlikely that he enjoys that game. But I also want to chat about like their whole chat about salary. I think it's like where they have a lot of banter on. I think firstly, Ryan is able to explain what the contracts look like. It looks like when you fail and he's able to explain why you succumb so much pressure that you will likely fail, it means that you get less money. So it means your salary also is at risk of actively reducing. But B, I also want you to like just place, I just want you to like analyze Ryan's argument, right? Because Ryan tells you a lot about how the environment is toxic. So I don't think he just can sustain this toxic environment simply because you're getting much more money. That this utility you get when you stay in such a bad environment, the depression, the anxiety simply because you succumb to media backlash. I don't think these are things that just become much less valuable simply because you have more money. But I also don't think it's responsive to Ryan's frame. As a football player, you likely care about your ability to enjoy that game that you love. I think it's less likely that you care about salary. It's much more likely about caring about the utility you get from playing the game. But if you're to value this as a principle, I think their whole chat on principle is like you probably ought to get more money in like proportionality of your talent. I don't think there's an active mechanism to measure what's proportional, like what amount of money is proportional to a certain talent. So you can't even value it on principle. I think that argument is out. I think that second speech, the only nuanced argument you get from it is inspiration. The problem here is that it's never actor linked. She never explains why inspiration is uniquely valuable for Bitalo. I'm just going to go to my extension. My extension just swallows the responses they give to our speech because it explains why more biases likely accrue for Bitalo. Extension. Why is the transition to Premier League side likely going to be toxic for a Ugandan player? A, relegation pressure creates a blame game. Why? I want to deposit that within relegation, likely teams, the incentive that exists for these teams is not to win, but to survive as much as possible. Why? A, there's a lot of pressure created by investors. So if you are losing buy-in as a team because investors will run away from you. But B, there's a unique financial capacity you garner when you stay in the Premier League, i.e. from like broadcasting revenue, from the sponsorships you're able to accrue by staying within the Premier League. But C, money from stadium visits, probably get much more money from like buying tickets simply because people want to visit your stadium more because Premier League garners much more demand. Why is this valuable? A, it means the environment within that dressing room is really toxic. Why? Nobody wants to be aligned or recognized as the cause of such a harmful thing. That's because they want to keep as much utility as they can. What likely happens within that dressing room? A, the players cognitively have incentive to blame someone. Why? A, the brain finds it easier to not internalize yourself as the cause of the harm. Like, why am I the problem? The brain is less likely to think of it as that. But B, you're cognitively risk averse in nature. So within other players' cognitive processes, they want to mitigate a risk that comes along with being recognized as the problem. So they just likely blame some other person. But C, you want to gain as much favor from other players and coaches. Why? Because it's likely maximizes how much joy you get when you're being glazed by everybody else. The most proximate mechanism that exists for this is simply to blame somebody else. Why is this valuable? Question. Who do you likely think is going to be blamed? I think first is someone who makes errors within the match. Why is it likely that Bitalo is the person that makes errors within the match? A, Ryan explains why it's likely you can't adapt to that game. I'm just going to give much more extensive analysis here. You can't adapt to a game because you lack team chemistry. Why? I think firstly, you lack team chemistry because you're not used to our tactics. These are tactics that are vastly different from the Ugandan leagues that you have played within. But B, I think there's a difference in skill, so you can't cope. There's a difference in skill from the players you're playing against, but the players you also play with, so you don't have the capacity to actively cope, especially the urgency Ryan is able to explain within his speech. But B, I think also succumbs to a lot of cognitive pressure, thus hindering his capacity to perform. This makes him more likely to make errors. What does this pressure look like? 4 things here. A, he's aware of the bias that the Prem is like very competitive. So this makes him naturally inclined to be as successful as possible. But what happens when he fails simply because he can't adapt? But B, you amplify the bias that he has to be the saving grace because the team is struggling. So you amplify the bias that he's the hero who has to take them out of relegation. But C, the Premier League media is not an easy place. There's a lot of scrutiny that's put onto players. This looks like headlines that actively perpetuate you as the person who's causing the team to be relegated. But D, a preemptive fear of being benched. It means that every single player wants to play in the Premier League. So you fear being benched. This is what actively creates so much pressure that you can't perform better. Why is this valuable? I think it's valuable because it proves why on likelihood he won't succeed. Or at least, in the worst case scenario for us, he won't succeed as fast. Ryan explains why he must succeed very quickly because there's an urgency to better your team or to accrue as many minutes as possible to avoid relegation. Why is this all valuable? Given that he doesn't succeed quickly, he succumbs to a blame game. I want to expand this argument before I impact it. Notice, I want to deposit that the blame game does not only exist within the dressing room, so they can have a lot of banter about that. It also likely exists within the fans themselves, the media. Why? Fans hold some attachment to a club. So, of course, they'll be looking for somebody to blame. It's more likely that they blame this person, Bitalo. Why? Firstly, you create a lot of media attention onto this person. Why? Because firstly, there's recency bias, so it's like a new transfer. So every person's attention is likely to be on him. But the transfer fee was likely high. So they're wondering why they spend a lot of money on an unknown player. So you garner a lot of attention for this person. This is why likely they criticize every small mistake he makes within the game. This is why there's a lot of negative discourse generated onto Bitalo. Why is this all important? It means you are throwing Bitalo into a pit of fire, an extremely toxic environment from which he can't actualize from. Why is this bad? Several impacts here. A, it means he becomes anxious. Every single time he touches the ball, he feels like everybody's blaming him for making his team fail. This is why actively he has a continuity in unsuccessful matches. But B, it means he succumbs to stuff like disutility and depression because he actively feels sad because he's succumbing to such negative discourse from the media, from the fans, and the players themselves. I'm just going to chat about the comparative here. What is comparatively better on our side? You don't take these risks. You stay where you gain utility. You stay where you don't where you don't succumb to such cognitive pressure, such internal dilemmas whereby you can actively enjoy that game you have grown up playing. Within our world, even if you get a substantial salary that's not really, really
Speaker, thank you for that wonderful speech. May we have the third speech from Proposition Yaya.
Just to confirm if I'm audible and set my timer. Am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes.
Let me just set my timer. Yeah. Okay. I'll begin my speech in 3, 2, 1. We go. So panel, notice one thing. Side opposition comes and creates a lot of confusion in their minds. One, tell us that, you know what, Lutalo looks like a player that's naturally talented to be good because they haven't been having this training from Uganda, but the mere fact that they've been recognized, it then means that they're good from birth. That then, I mean, that's all the arguments they bring about all his imperfection, all his coming out to struggle with being perfect on the teams. If they tell us that this Lutalo is good from birth, it then means like even when they go to the English Premier League, they're necessarily good to meet the standards of the competition that's there. That they're already good. Yeah. What else? Even in the side of the viewer, they tell us that, you know what, he needs training and all that and all to better up. It then brings this into the table. One, if Lutalo is able to have his own talent, but whether it's added on talent, that means it's going to meet the standards out there. What do they tell us? They tell us that, you know what, this is a very struggling English Premier League that's not going to help Lutalo train and all that. They tell us about the toxic environment. Tribute to this one. That's about the nature of the environment that's happening that day. With this nature of environment that's happening, it looks like, and they shared it as an environment that's going to make Lutalo known to have a lot of pressure, to have the racism and all that. What do we tell them? One, if you look at Lutalo coming as already a talented personnel, a personnel that's just going to add on to by training and then better up themselves, it then looks like we are presuming that Lutalo is going to be like a very good player on the team, and him being a good player on the team, that then assures us that this Lutalo is not going to be having the pressure, is not going to be hated by others because he's doing good on that team. The mere fact that this team is even striving, he's having the probability and a high probability of bringing up this team. It then means like he's going to be liked by the team members, he's going to be liked by the coaches, and that eliminates the racism they talk us. When they talk about the pressure that's going to be caused in this case of the right, one, to tell them that this happens, they assume that Lutalo is very good, and which we agree to. Well, the mere fact that Lutalo has been recognized is going to be added to the pressure, is going to be added to the training, is going to be perfect. That eliminates the pressure that is put on them. But even at a little bit extent where pressure exists, do not eliminate the fact that a little pressure exists, because pressure is necessary for a normal person to work very well. Even at the extent where Lutalo decides to stay in Uganda, he will still have the pressure to do very good things for that team he's working for. The little pressure that exists is necessary to push this player. But the maximum pressure they are assuming, we eliminate that because we're telling you that, you know what, this person is going to have a very well. Imagine that say, one, it's not about the racism. Tell them that racism does not occur if this player is having a good performance on that team. That means like, okay, I would like to give an example. The example I'm giving is going to be the example of Divine Mukisa, a player on Manchester City. He's right now existing on that team. He's playing well. He's not having any form of pressure, they're telling us. So that means Bitalo being good, the guarantee that you're having that is already good, means you also have a to live in that time. One, what do they bring? They tell us that, you know what, this player is going to be blamed for any mistakes that happen because he's not going to have that teamwork and all that. What do we tell them? One, look into this. When Lutalo goes, he's not necessarily going to just join the team. One, he's going to first analyze and it's going to first relate with the team members through the training that's going to be having, the training that takes place with the team. That means he's going to develop the team chemistry and team coordination with time before he comes to now start playing actual games for that team and then better up. What do we then bring into our side? Yeah, what does team proposition tells you? Proposition tells that, you know what, this is a very good opportunity for Lutalo to have career growth and exposure. The mere fact that he's going with a struggling English Premier League team, it means like he's also going to be recognized by other good English Premier League teams that are going to make him like, that are going to boost his career and give him exposure. They tell us that, you know what, this is going to be short term. Why do they tell us short term? They don't they tell us short term. It means like they are assuming, I do not take care of that later. It means they are assuming Lutalo not to be talented, Lutalo to be looking like someone who is going to fail out because he lacks talent. But again, they themselves tell us that Lutalo has talent. If he has talent, that means like if he goes out there, it's going to be recognized by other better teams because of his talent that he has. That was also used to recognize him. That means like if he's recognized by other teams, he will join other big teams like Arsenal, like Manu, and then that helps him to have career growth and exposure. But even at the less extent where we do not expect it, if it so happens and Lutalo is not having the growth that side, and maybe they have to push him back to Uganda, even at the less extent where that happens, we look into him as coming back as someone who has been added on to value, someone who is severe as grown, someone who is having more exposure, someone who is having more skills and tactics that then benefits the local team that he has left in Uganda and also benefits him as a person. Secondly, we look into the inspiration that Lutalo is going to have into these specific people. My second speaker tells you that, you know, even after Lutalo going, like the other Mukasa that went, he will have to inspire more Ugandans back home. And these Ugandans will have to work hard, will have to have sleepless nights of training, and that will then push them to being good players and also being recognized. What then that brings the pride to the nation itself, and also helps the nation to improve. For example, when they come back to play like on the Ugandan team, they'll have to better up. That then benefits the country. Check your PI.
Alan Okello is a Ugandan maverick who was non-existent against Algeria's reserve team in Chan. How will he beat world-class players who are on a Ballon d'Or level?
I do not want to let Alan Okello to Bitalo, who is just going. If Alan Okello is already there, that then also will be an inspiration to Bitalo. I don't want to let much into him, but rather come back to Bitalo. One, we tell you what then becomes a clash point in this debate. In this particular debate, we are mainly looking at the career growth of this specific person, Bitalo, what then benefits him in both cases. One, we look at a world whereby we are telling you that when Bitalo goes, he's likely to have the exposure, likely to have the growth, likely to have the relations, likely to have the economic benefits. What do they tell us for economic benefit? It's not that, you know what, this is a player that's not looking at how many fans he's getting and all that. But what do we tell you from our side? Even if he's a player and he's playing just for fun to benefit, this is not a very factual fact, because even if you're playing just for fun, you're not going to be doing that for your entire life. He's taking football as a career that he has to benefit from. That means that the nature of the funds that he's getting are very crucial and beneficial in this case, so they have to be significant and recognized. At the extent whereby we recognize that the English Premier League, even if it's a struggling team, it will have more funds being paid to Bitalo. It is the nature of the contract that is going to sign. My second speaker tells you that, you know what, even in the signing of this contract, Bitalo will have autonomy to decide on which specific conditions to put on this contract and which specific funds to get that then benefits him as a person. How then do they tell us? They tell us that, you know what, when Bitalo remains, he's not working under pressure, the false pressure they put, because even the pressure exists as he remains in Uganda. And then they tell us, you know what, he's protected from racism and all that. But what we tell them from our side of that bit, and why we win this particular flashpoint, we tell that this exposure of Bitalo eliminates all the minor effects they assume in their side, and even we also tell you how these minor effects can be curbed in this particular case. Even at the less extent where they assume that they will occur, they will not affect this particular person Bitalo. So in the long run, we end up by telling you that the side that will win this debate is the team that tells you how the major stakeholder, who is Bitalo, benefits from this case. So our team tells you how Bitalo benefits from this, either with short term or long term, and we also go on and give you on impact how even the country itself, the country Uganda, will benefit from this. They do not bring to us, they do not bring for us a better alternative. Well, Bitalo benefits from this, and therefore they fail to give us, they fail to cater for the stakeholder. They just assume for the covering of this person, and they assume false accountability. I beg to rest.
Thank you, Speaker. May we invite the third speaker from opposition, Yaya.
Let me just get a few seconds to set my timer, then I'll start. Okay. I'm going to begin my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Pano, the example of Divine Mukasa in this debate, I think, is largely irrelevant. Notice that he has grown up within this country and he has not experienced the toxic environment that Glen explains explicitly in his speech. I think that more likely examples are people such as Travis Mutiaba, people like Frank Mia, who have literally failed in Europe and returned to their countries under different optics. There are two things that have to be true for the entire proposition case to even be true in this debate. Firstly, is that there has to be success for Bitalo in this league. To the extent that we are able to prove that that success will not happen, their case cannot exist. But secondly, you have to show that finance is the most important thing to the actor. I think they are unable to explain why finance is the most important thing to an actor beyond the kinds of incentives that we provide for this particular actor. And I'm going to address this clash on finance really quickly. You see, why we think that a footballer is more likely to value being loved, receiving appreciation, and being able to succeed in the sport he really loves over any kind of financial assistance is on two things. Firstly, I think the analysis that Glen gives you on the toxicity that exists. Notice, these clubs are largely toxic because they're living within survival. They don't have any sort of utility that exists in them. They're always arguing, they're always people who are being blamed. I think this analysis is so important in showing you the mental schematics that exist for this particular person. They're not going to be able to achieve some sort of happiness or fulfillment at all, even from the money that they're able to earn, if they're not able to actually achieve some certain level of success within the sport that they really love. If there's going to be a mental issue with this, there's going to be mental pressure and mental torture that's applied on this particular person, there's no utility that's provided for them, and that's a thing. We think no amount of money is worth trading for feeling like a problem in a place, for feeling like an outsider, and there's no amount of money that can reparate what you are going through mentally from pressure and from demonization in this particular case. But secondly, I think this financial income is largely unstable. For them to claim that they achieve it and they say it's important to the actor, they have to show that the actor largely receives this money, they need it, and they'll continuously get it. Why we think it's not stable is the analysis we already give you on how there's a survival existing. I think clubs that are largely trying to survive are desperate. That means that the extent that you're not able to perform well, maybe in 1 match, 2 matches, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you're going to largely face things such as benching, you're going to face things such as transfers. The pressure is really high, and we don't think you can face it, as we already as we already analyzed for you in our earlier speeches. I think the most likely thing here is that he's going to be transferred because he's unable to keep up with this particular pressure. And when he gets transferred or he returns to his home country, I think the optics of his return are generally bad. He doesn't return as the hero they tried to paint him as, legendary guy who went to the Premier League. No, he returns as a failure who has ashamed his country on the global stage. But secondly, his performance has already been spoiled by the fact that his confidence is already downplayed. That means even if he's to return, he's unable to perform at the level he performed previously within the local leagues. And I think the biggest mistake they make, which is strategic, is to fail to understand what most likely happens. Notice, we already concede within this debate that there's much better quality in this league. And that means that there are so many people in this league that are just so good. This actually brings the debate down to a different question. Why would this club actually call you in the first place? Why would they offer you an opportunity? And I think if they don't respond to this, it becomes problematic on their side. Our side thinks two things. Firstly, it's most likely that they want to do things such as quotas. That means have certain level of black players on their team. But secondly, they most likely just want something like squad depth and just to have as many people to be able to be subs and all those sorts of things. They are not necessarily looking for a star player that's going to be able to do this. Why? Because players in Europe have faced better conditions than you, better training from the time they were young. That means they are more likely to be the star players that are needed in this instance. That means you're most likely being brought in as a member to bring squad depth or to fulfill a certain level of quotas. Why did this analysis then have to be important in the debate? It becomes important because it shows you why he's most likely going to be benched and sidelined in the team. He's not likely to be higher in the hierarchy of how this team is going to be able to operate. Now, you see, even if we consider this idea of training and tactics, I don't think he's the only person who's receiving it within the team. That means he largely has so much more competition to get a slot on the team, which is bad for him because the visibility they try to claim on their side will not happen. There's even optics around why he's most likely not going to be picked based on where he comes from. I think that's already explained and not dealt with. What this does to the debate is that it shows you that he's not going to be able to accrue that level of inspiration that they say is going to give to other people if he just can't be seen on TV. He just can't be materialized. We'll just be knowing, hey, Bitalo went to the UK, but we don't really see him except maybe when they're making fun of him for being dribbled by players in better teams. I think the importance there is that legacy cannot be achieved, but secondly, it means that he lacks the purchasing power to get the good contracts that will allow him to earn good money on their side. And I think it's really weird that they run an argument around good contracts and how he's going to earn money. I think there are two things here. Ryan already analyzes for you why these small clubs don't necessarily pay people that much. I think the importance of this analysis lasts on two levels. He's not going to be living within Uganda where everything is simply affordable. If these clubs are not able to give him that much money, he can't be able to keep up with the costs of living in the country where he has gone. But secondly, notice the lifestyle pressures that exist on players. That means that players usually go to clubs, go to parties and live this kind of lifestyle. If he's unable to commit to actually live within this lifestyle, it means even the marginal benefit that they claim to provide for him, which is largely finance, is not able to be materialized. That becomes dangerous to the extent that he actually doesn't receive any benefit on their side of the house. That's what we show you in the debate. But secondly, I think it's really easy for a player from Africa to be manipulated into a terrible contract where he earns far less than anyone else because he has not been earning this kind of money. It's better for him to stay within Uganda where his salary can really coordinate with the kind of cost of living that exists, but secondly, where there's no lifestyle pressure that's placed on him. That's why I really think that the idea of finance can't be so important to Bitalo in this particular debate because no one can take his legacy away from him. Now, let me take their best case, and I'm going to engage their best case really quickly. Their best case is that he's going to be successful, right? He's going to become this national hero, very successful. I think there are two things then that we need to engage with in their best case. The first is what Glen already explained to you on his personality. I think he's a person who largely just enjoys football. That means they have an active incentive to enjoy the matches they play. If they're being restricted tactically, we think on a principled level, they're just not going to enjoy this game anymore. That becomes dangerous, that their personality is suppressed and they just don't feel the attachment to this sport anymore. That analysis is not rebutted in any way within all their speeches. I think it's important because we think Bitalo, as a footballer who enjoys the sport he plays, requires to have their personality expressed, requires to enjoy that. When they don't explain why he will still enjoy football on their side, even in their best case, they would still lose this debate. But secondly, I think there's an active demonization back home that they don't explain. Notice that very many people buy into these clubs back home. And when they see you leave their clubs and go and chase your own financial dreams, and not even doing that well, they're not going to be able to appreciate you. Now, I think you need to analyze why this is important. Appreciation from other countries or foreign appreciation really fades quickly in comparison to appreciation that you get from your home country. This is why players like Drogba are still praised in England, but it is nowhere near the kind of appreciation that they get in Africa. This analysis is important because it flips all the analysis on legacy, on all the analysis on inspiration. I think you're better able to inspire individuals when you're more proximate to them, when your story feels closer to their story. Notice, we already explained to you how English media is really dangerous in how it portrays African players. They are unable to accrue that benefit of becoming an inspiration or a legacy. I think when you stay on your home, you're still able to have stages like the national team where you're assured of actually being a member, where you can actually participate and do all these things. I think this means that even if we agree that some sort of like failure of visibility happens on our side, but I think we're able to get the marginal benefit of a better legacy and better inspiration. Two things then need to be proven. One, they have to give clear analysis that is flipping our analysis on why he's not going to be successful. But secondly, they have to show us, and this is very important, why they're able to preserve his personality in football, why they're able to make sure he enjoys playing the game of football, and why they have their marginal benefit of finance will be materialized on their side of the house, given everything that happens and how they manage the toxic environment. I think on that, we win this debate.
Thank you very much for that fine speech. That brings us to the end of the constructive part of this debate. As we move on to the reply speeches, a general advisory to the room. If you are not speaking, please keep yourself muted. I see a speaker right now. Thank you very much for muting. Now, we call upon the first reply speaker of the debate, Op reply. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're audible.
Cool. Give me a second. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to start the speech in 3, 2, 1. Uganda played Algeria, but they played Algeria's reserve team in a recent tournament called Chan. Uganda's best player, Alan Okello, was non-existent in that match. These are largely guys who play in the Algerian league and other African leagues, and he still couldn't cope to show himself. They don't give any analysis then to show why, if such a similar kind of player, who is Bitalo, has the capacity to succeed when he's facing world-class players, Ballon d'Or players, and all these things, win this debate. Firstly, on strategy, we decided to take them at their best and assume he's even going to play games in the first place. But right down from my speech, down the bench, Glen's speech and Titus' speech, we're able to show you why. One, the tactical nature of a struggling EPL team does not allow him to succeed, even if he's to play games. That's because it's less fluid and less dynamic and doesn't engage with the fact that he's more likely a maverick player and a fluid player. But then secondly, the psychological and cognitive pressure that exists on this individual in two ways. Firstly, on level of media scrutiny, the significant media scrutiny that exists from you being this guy with all these highlights of an African player. When you cannot hit those standards and hit the ground running, the very toxic English fan base, as we have been able to mechanize to you, is actively going to vilify you. When you get vilified, your confidence is lost. When your confidence is lost, this doesn't play well. We chat about why this is bad. It's because there are more likely contract clauses that exist that are going to be activated to then reduce your bonuses, to then reduce any form of financial security you're then able to get. But on the second level that Glen is able to bring in that debate, Glen says that, cool, given the toxic environment that exists, your teammates are less likely going to like you and less likely going to engage with you. He says this because, first, it's just very easy to blame a player who's from a different race, who's from a different country. Secondly, they don't rate you as much because you don't have as much quality as them. It means the wins become theirs and the losses actively become yours. That's assuming he's going to play. We're not able to get any engagement on this. It just becomes a parallel rant about how he's most talented. If he's the most talented Ugandan, like Alan Okello in these instances, we don't think he will succeed. So they lose on the very biggest clash in this debate on their ability to succeed. Yeah, that's the first thing. But then, nextly, on financial security, this is largely tied to your ability to succeed. In as far as you can't succeed, you cannot get any financial viability, like financial security. in that instance. That's why they largely lose this debate. And then lastly, just on Bitalo himself, if we assumed that, okay, maybe making money is not important, succeeding is not important, where does he actualize best? At bowling out and enjoying football, enjoying the great, beautiful game. We say, due to very similar mechanisms, that he's not able to enjoy it to that extent. He's not able to bowl out due to the tactical restraints and all these things. It means it actively harms his maverick identity and he's not able to enjoy playing football. What engagement do we get to this? I don't think we get any engagement to this. The only engagement they give is that they concede he's talented, so he's going to do well. The talent that exists in Uganda is different from the quality that exists in the English Premier League. You're playing against Haaland, you're playing against Van Dijk, not some random guys in UG. Here.
Okay, Chair. Hope you're ready for the proposition reply. Hello.
Yes, we are ready for the proposition reply. But I do see that George is still unmuted. So please, okay, thank you very much. So now we can move on to the proposition reply. Yeah.
Okay, my reply begins in 3, 2, 1, go. Chair, I think both teams concede that Bitalo is actually a good player, right? Then the question becomes, what must he do with his talent? I think the team that wins this debate is a team that has a clear answer on that. What do they run? They run an argument on segregation, and I think it's their major argument. But then we give them a lot of replies on that, and it doesn't count, and this is why we win. One, we told them in my second and third speech that when a team invites you, one, it's ready to amalgamate you in their team. But then number two, and most importantly, you're most likely not going to misfire in that team because they think you match their playing style, right? I think then that works out why he's going to shine there, right? Two, and most importantly, on individual, even public segregation in the Europe, we told them that there are laws that protect these individuals, and the media is most likely not going to oppress them and segregate them. Even when a team loses, we told them in the second speech that then all players are abused, even coaches themselves. So they needed to show you why it is exclusively for Bitalo that is going to be abused and things of the sort, right? So, and most importantly, on the idea of benefits, we think the benefits we give you in this debate are prospective benefits. That is to say, we would have all the benefits we tell you, still proceed even when Bitalo is not in these teams. Things to say that if he plays one, he's a Ugandan ambassador in football, the funding, the inspiration that is created, and the support to Ugandan football are all prospective, and they will continue. In this debate, however, on regards on what he must do to his talent, they fail to give you an alternative, and they keep telling you things, but then we are giving you something that is directly proportional to how Bitalo's talent is described in the info slide and the debate, right? Two, and most importantly, we think they debate mostly the Premier League, not Bitalo himself. That is to say, they believe that then the European football and stuff related to that can be compared to the weak Ugandan Premier League team, or football and things related to that. We think this is very dangerous, and it's not very viable for one particular reason that we tell you. That to say that the soft gains for Bitala and the rate he has to opt higher make him go to those particular kinds of teams and things related to that rate. But then since they don't even give you an alternative to this, then we think it's most in the most interest of Bitalo to go opt for the big opportunity that comes once. Lastly, why we win this particular kind of debate. It's because of the major aim of like the alternative and things related to that. We ought to get like something from opposition that is like directly proportional, that Bitalo is most likely like going to buy in, compare like to choosing for a greater opportunity in life, which like said proposition provides in this debate. And that's why we are able to murder them. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll assume that that speaker is done with speaking. So